Good morning. Hi, friends. Happy Monday and Happy New Year. My name is Libby, and welcome to my audio journal, Finding Joy in the Shadows, where I spend time each week talking about the fun curveballs life throws our way and help us look for pockets of joy. This is also an opportunity for me to continue working through my own life struggles while also sharing ways to help anyone who might be listening work through some areas in your own life that you might be struggling with so that we can all find joy together. For today's conversation, I wanted to focus on breaking the cycles that keep us stuck and discover the joy hidden in each of these life lessons we are facing. Life's challenges can feel overwhelming, but when we take the time to recognize the patterns, learn from them, and then break free from them, finally, we open ourselves up to growth and transformation. There's beauty in realizing that even the toughest lesson can still lead us to joy if we're open to seeing them differently and embracing the journey. So that's what we're going to do today. But before, per usual, there's a couple things that hopped up on my radar last week that we'll dive into. Some LPs, some Libby's problems. Now, by the time this episode airs, I think, like I said in last week's episode, we will be well into 2025. But since I am recording this episode during the first few days of the new year, let me take this opportunity to officially wish everyone a happy new year. I hope everyone had a lovely holiday season and caught up on some much needed rest and relaxation. Because if the events that took place within the wee hours of the new year, from New Orleans to Vegas, and now this crazy winter storm that's hitting the Southeast, for those of us that look to the universe to send us clues on what's about to happen, with everything that has already happened since January 1st, I think these are all signs for some even crazier things yet to come. I am grateful my company gives us the whole week between Christmas and New Year's off, because while I don't always make the most of my PTO during the year, and let's be honest, when I do take time away, my laptop always manages to sneak its way into my suitcase, no matter the trip. So this week is a rare opportunity for me to truly disconnect. I try to take full advantage of it by doing as little as possible. Now, for New Year's, I was thrilled to be invited to the Hargrove's house. So for me, that's like being invited to the popular group. Rachel and Joel, they know how to throw a party. Their Halloween bash is always legendary, complete with the coolest decorations, music, food. And they have a Christmas open house, and it's just their setup is always adorable. They have the perfect setup for hosting, and they always go above and beyond and make sure everyone has a great time. Plus, they are two of the nicest people you could ever meet. So saying yes to one of their invites is always a no-brainer. This year, though, I had one goal in mind. I was going to make it to midnight so I could finally take part in the 12 grapes tradition. But here's the thing. At this stage in life, my version of pre-gaming looks a little different from when I was in my 20s. Back in the day, it was all about throwing back as many shots as we could before heading out to the club to save a little bit of money, right? Remember those days? Well, fast forward to when you hit 40 plus, and it's all about scheduling a minimum 3 to 4 hour nap just so you can actually stay awake past 9 o'clock. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with the 12 grapes tradition, or if you somehow never saw this on the TV show Modern Family, it's a fun tradition that's very big in Latin cultures. Each grape represents 1 month of the year, and as you eat the grape, you make a wish or set an intention for something good to come your way for each month of 2025. It's such a lighthearted and meaningful way to kick off the year with positivity and purpose. Naturally, I made everyone join in with me, and we covered all of our bases, friends. We ate our grapes, we lit the fireworks, we cheered to Old Lang Syne, including one version with bagpipes. So all of that has to help, right? When I finally made it home at 3 a.m., yes, You heard me correctly. When I finally made it home around 3 a.m., I made sure to blow a little bit of cinnamon through my front door to welcome abundance for the new month. You would think that would have been the end of my day, but nope. I still made it to breakfast later that morning to catch up with my dear friend Chris. And later that evening, I hosted a cozy dinner with my nephew and his girlfriend. So, Jackson and Amanda, shout out to you guys. And Amanda, thank you for giving me a crash course on how to use Instagram a little bit more effectively to help me promote this podcast. I will say, after all that, I did finally call it a night. And then I slept for like the next 2 days. So we are officially in 2025, which means the BTS reunion is now only 6 months away. And all the fans I follow online are very excited. This girl is too. Yes, I am really looking forward to what their reunion will look like. Since I became a fan after they all started joining the military, I don't know what it's like to be a fan with all of them together. I have no idea what to expect. I mean, I guess I should say I have an idea of what to expect, but definitely I am looking forward to living through all those possibilities and all those feels when the time comes. As I am recording this episode, the southeast part of the country is getting a taste of the kind of weather us northerners usually live through, thanks to the polar vortex. They are experiencing temps as low as -40 degrees. Meanwhile, by the end of this week, we will actually be swinging up to like 30 degrees above zero. I'm a Minnesota girl through and through. I love winter, but I am certainly not complaining about this warm up that is coming our way. I do hope everyone is staying safe this winter, though, because cold weather is no joke. Okay, I can't think of any other topics or LPs that were on my radar last week, so we'll go ahead and dive in. As always, I got my iced coffee on hand. Lulu Joy is at doggy daycare. I tried to record with her. Didn't go well. I might share one of the bloopers of me losing my mind after having to stop and re-record, I think on the 4th time. And she wasn't going to give me any quiet time. So homegirl is at daycare right now. So no background opinions from the peanut gallery today. For the rest of our time together, I want to focus on this idea of breaking our cycles. You know, like Taylor famously says in her song Anti-Hero, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. I know I am probably biting off way more than I can chew here, but I wanted to give this topic a go. As always, I am not a professional therapist in any way, shape, or form. All I can speak to are my own life experiences and lessons learned. Since the formation of Libby's audio journal, I have wanted to talk about breaking cycles since the beginning, but I could never find the right way to approach it. Every time I sat down in front of my journal, I struggled to put my thoughts into words. Anyone else ever find themselves in that kind of conundrum? Now, by the time this episode airs, like I've said a few times, we will be well into 2025. And it's safe to say that most, if not all, of those New Year's resolutions made on January 1st will soon be distant memories. And maybe that's the point. So many resolutions fail because they focus on surface level changes. But what if the real problem lies a little deeper in the cycles that keep us stuck? That's why this might actually be the perfect time to explore this topic. While this idea didn't originate during my recent conversation on the Matt McNeil show, it was that discussion, along with reflections on patterns I've observed in my own life, along with the lives of those around me, that really solidified why I wanted to talk about this today. For those of you who aren't local, Matt is a radio host here in Minnesota. I have been listening to his show regularly since 2013, 2015, and it was a huge honor when he replied to my Instagram DMs with advice and an offer to help promote this little podcast. So his kindness and generosity just truly blew me away. That conversation we had on air reminded me of a recurring theme that keeps showing up in our lives. Nobody wants to go through another life lesson. Nobody is out here raising their hand and volunteering as tribute, like Katniss Everdeen so famously does in the Hunger Games, right? But here's the thing. If we don't take the time to actually learn from life's lessons and make the changes needed to break the cycle, newsflash, friends, those lessons will keep showing up. They'll repeat until we finally get it. So at some point, we have to stop, take inventory, and ask ourselves, why does this keep happening to me? What do I need to change to finally break this pattern and move forward? And we see this theme show up on social media every December like clockwork. We all see tons of these funny posts from people saying, God, please do not put me on your strongest soldier list for 2025. Anyone else see those? They're funny because they're also so relatable. What they're really saying here is, okay, listen, God, universe, anyone who might be listening out there, I just went through some crazy stuff last year and I would really appreciate not having to do that again. And honestly, I get it. Having gone through my fair share of it in 2024, nobody wants to go through the same trials and tribulations again and again. But having worked on myself for the last 10 years and becoming more in tune with how the universe and God operates, I finally figured it out. If we keep finding ourselves in the same situations, the same arguments, or the same struggles, and the same patterns over and over and over again, then it might not just be bad luck. It might be that we haven't yet learned the lesson that God or the universe has been trying to teach us. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and define what it is that we're talking about. What are cycles and how do we go about breaking them? Cycles, as they relate to personal growth, are recurring patterns of behavior, thoughts, or experiences in our lives. Some cycles are positive. They help us build structure, encourage growth, or bring us joy. For example, practicing gratitude daily or exercising regularly can create a cycle of positive reinforcement. But other cycles can hold us back, keeping us stuck in toxic relationships, self-doubt, or bad habits. These are the ones we need to break and learn from. Now, if we lean on my homegirl, Mrs. Google, breaking the cycle is a term used in therapy. It refers to the process of actively identifying and changing a repetitive, often harmful pattern of behavior, thoughts, or emotions that an individual has developed, usually stemming from past experiences or family dynamics. In other words, it means we are consciously choosing to disrupt a negative cycle and replace it with healthier habits or responses. But let me pause here for a second and break this down a little bit more. Getting to a place where you are able to acknowledge a pattern exists in your life is a massive step. Now, we all have these patterns and cycles. Like I just said, some good and some not so good. Just because you identify a negative pattern or cycle that keeps showing up doesn't mean you are bad. I want to be clear. Yes, sometimes when you get to the point of asking, am I the problem? The answer might be partly yes, but it's also yes for everyone else involved in that cycle. This isn't about singling yourself out or placing all of the blame on just you. Okay? Becoming aware of these patterns is a huge step forward, a major victory even. Awareness is the foundation for meaningful change because once you recognize these recurring cycles, you can then begin to identify the triggers that keep setting them in motion. Understanding the why behind these patterns is what will empower you to take action. It's not about fixing yourself as if something is inherently wrong with you. It's about giving yourself the space and tools to finally break free from these cycles and move toward a healthier, more fulfilling life that aligns with the person you're becoming. Now, here's the tricky part. We all have different patterns, habits, and cycles. And since this is a podcast, I can't see or hear you. So I can't speak directly to any one specific situation. But let me say this. If you have ever asked yourself the infamous question, am I the problem? Chances are, as I've already mentioned, it's not that you're the problem. It's more likely that there is a habit, a behavior, or a cycle that simply needs some tweaking. And please, this is so important. Please do not corner someone with this question. I once had a dear friend corner me by saying, so my aunts aren't speaking to me, my cousins aren't speaking to me, and my mom currently isn't speaking to me. Do you think I'm the problem? Newsflash, nobody wants to be put in that position, okay? Now, in this particular example, I cared very deeply for this person, so I gave them the most diplomatic non-answer I could muster. I said, well, you're someone with a strong personality, but if you feel there are areas you need to make changes to, I support you. If you are lucky enough to reach a point where you can finally ask yourself, am I the problem? Take a moment to acknowledge how important that realization is. The hardest part is recognizing that something isn't working. And this moment of realization is huge. It's a powerful first step, friends. But here's what I want you to remember. When you find yourself asking, am I the problem? Please also remember that it's not really about being the problem. It's about simply identifying a pattern or a habit that you have picked up along the way, and it's something that keeps showing up and creating friction in your life. When those aha moments of realization hit, I encourage you to trust your gut. Take a step back and have an honest conversation with yourself. If you are able to identify these patterns, cycles, or situations that keep repeating in your life, there's no need to seek validation from others. The answer is already staring you right in the face. Remember, being the problem isn't inherently bad. It simply means there's a lesson you haven't learned yet, which is why it keeps resurfacing. So when you catch yourself venting yet again to friends or family about the same failed relationships, the constant overwhelm of adulting responsibilities, or the frustrations of feeling underappreciated at work, take a pause and ask yourself, what part of these situations am I responsible for? That moment of self-reflection is where the real change begins. Breaking a cycle starts with self-awareness and the courage to ask, what am I doing to contribute to this? And how can I change it? Sometimes, the problem is us, and that's okay. Recognizing it is the first step to change. Being the problem doesn't make us a bad person. It just means there are lessons to be learned because these patterns will keep appearing until we master them. For me, this realization hit hard last year during a pivotal moment of self-reflection that I was going through. As I've shared before on this podcast, I was navigating some incredibly heavy challenges in my life this time last year. Thankfully, my story has a happy ending, and it's what ultimately led me to create this podcast in the first place, to help others who are seeking to make positive changes in their lives and bring them more joy. Now, during those self-reflection exercises, when I was having some of the most honest conversations I've ever had with myself, I finally came to understanding something important. I wasn't bad, and neither were the people I found myself dealing with in that particular cycle. We were all in the middle of learning our own lessons, different ones, but equally important. Sure, might sound cheesy to anyone listening who doesn't know, but it doesn't make the experience any less true. When we found ourselves stuck in toxic or negative cycles, it's important to remember that we are not in them alone, friends. Everyone involved has their own role to play, which is why acknowledging your part doesn't make you, or anyone else for that matter, the villain. Nor does it mean all the blame should rest solely on one person. It's about recognizing that these recurring patterns will continue to show up until we decide to take ownership of the parts we can and begin breaking these cycles. Last year, I experienced a profound moment of clarity. My aha moment. And it was this realization that changed everything for me. When you are able to take a step back and observe the bigger picture, you will begin to see the roles we all are playing in these moments, including your own. And you begin to understand the why behind everyone else's actions. In that moment, when I was assessing the circumstances I found myself in, I realized that while I was dealing with my own unhealthy cycle in that moment, viewing the experience through this lens of clarity allowed me to see the toxic cycles the others were also bringing into the mix as well. Recognizing these overlapping patterns and identifying the triggers that were keeping me feeling stuck gave me the tools to finally break free. Once I understood my part and the changes I needed to make, I started moving forward in a way that felt more empowering. That shift brought such a moment of clarity I had never experienced before. I began to see my own behavior with greater honesty and understand why others were acting the way they were, recognizing that they too were bringing their own toxic cycles into the mix. This awareness allowed me to extend more compassion toward them and in turn, completely reframe my perspective. This transformation helped me see challenges not as roadblocks, but as opportunities for growth. As I continue to heal, this moment of clarity still serves me in powerful ways, almost like seeing the world through Neo's eyes in the movie The Matrix. When someone says or does something I now recognize as a trigger, when their actions might have once brought out a side of me I didn't like or caused me anger, I see myself responding differently now. I have finally learned to give people the space to act as they choose, even if their behavior isn't ideal or desired. As Mel Robbins continues to preach, I let them make their comment. I let them have their tantrum. And I let them act in an inappropriate way. Instead of engaging or letting their negativity ruin my moment or the moment I'm in, I stay grounded. I refuse to let their actions pull me back into a cycle I have worked so hard to break. Their behavior no longer holds the same power it once did, and I can see how that has helped me grow stronger because of it. Now, here's the tricky part. The universe has a sense of humor, friends. Okay? Just when you think you've healed a pattern, it will test you. And I saw a hilarious Instagram reel where a woman was boldly declaring that she didn't give any more Fs, if you know what F stands for. And then the universe threw challenge after challenge to see just how many Fs she actually did give. And it's true, isn't it? The moment we say, I'm fine, this doesn't bother me anymore, the universe seems to ask, you sure about that? So be prepared. The minute you start making these changes, you might just find yourself in situations very quickly where this new thought process you're putting into play will be tested very quickly because that's how the universe operates. If you're ready to take a closer look at your life and start identifying areas where cycles might be showing up, here are a few steps to help you get started. Excuse me. First, start by acknowledging. If you're ready to take a closer look at your life and start identifying areas where cycles might be showing up, here are a few steps to help you get started. Start by acknowledging that a cycle or a pattern exists. Be honest with yourself. Seeing a bad pattern doesn't make you bad. It simply highlights an area where there's an opportunity to learn and grow. Acknowledging the pattern is a great first step, but it's only the beginning. To truly break the cycle, you have to dig deeper and do the work. Once you have identified what's happening, I encourage you to understand why it keeps showing up. Is it triggered by a specific person, a situation, or maybe a thought process? Becoming aware of these triggers will allow you to prepare for them in the future and create new responses next time they show up. Finally, remember that change doesn't happen overnight, friends. Focus on making realistic, incremental progress rather than expecting perfection. If you slip back into your old patterns, remind yourself that every day is a new opportunity to try again. With patience and persistence, you can break these cycles and create lasting change. Lastly, please don't be afraid to seek support, whether it's from family, friends, or maybe a professional. An outside perspective can help you see blind spots and approach challenges in new ways. And replace that negative self-talk with encouragement and celebrate even the smallest victories. Remember, everyone is working on something, and the cycles you are trying to break are likely very similar to what others are tackling as well. So as always, take baby steps and show yourself some self-love. You've got this. Okay, I think I have babbled on long enough. As always, we will add to this next week. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, has an amazing week, and I look forward to our next chat. Peace out, friends.